Chapter 7 Neverseen. The dwarves called this cavern Aluvithere. Mr. Forkel said as he slowed his Icodon to let Sophie and her friends catch up, which in Dwarven means the sands of dawn. Sophie translated. Keith laughed. Always gotta show off. Mr. Forkel ignored him. The dwarves view this place as a testimony of our planet's power to recreate itself. Above us is a barren wasteland of human pollution and destruction. But look at what has surged to life in the safety below, thanks to a little light and little peace. The Dwarven king brought me here when I revealed the existence of our organization. He thought it would be the perfect place for us to make a fresh start. So King Enki is on our side, Della asked. He's not against the council, if that's what you're wondering. But he has felt for some time that the councillor's methods are not working. Many dwarves had offered their assistance, though at the moment most have returned to their cities. They need time to mourn their friends who fell in the battle on Mount Everest and to treat their wounded. Sophie tried to remember how many dwarves had died that day. Was it 3? 4? She hated that she didn't know, hated how easy it was to focus only on the people she knew and forget that there were dozens of others risking their lives for the Black Swan's cause. Before she could ask how the injured dwarves were doing, Mr. Forkel said, "Here are your new residences." He pointed ahead to where an arched bridge with a black gazebo in the center connected with 2 enormous trees standing on either side of the river. Their trunks had been wrapped in wooden staircases that wound up to the tallest branches, where 2 massive tree houses overlooked the entire forest. The residence on the east is for the girls, and the west is for the boys. The bridge in the center has a common area for you to share meals together. See, I think a group party house sounds way more fun. Who's with me? Keith asked. Nobody agreed, though Dex looked like he wanted to. So did Biana. The Icodon scrolled ashore, and Sophie transmitted thank you as she and Keith slid off her plesiosaur's back. 3 gnomes popped out of the bushes to greet them, flashing wide green-toothed smiles and shaking the leaves off their earth-toned skin as they set a bucket of nasty wriggling things in front of each Icodon. Sophie had thought the sludgers she fed Iggy, her pet imp, were disgusting, but this looked like the evil spawn of scorpions and maggots. Larvagorns. A gnome with long braided hair said as the Icodons gobbled the creepy crawlers up like candy. Believe it or not, the dwarves considered them a rare delicacy. Sophie was very glad to be an elf. The squish crunch alone made her gag. I thought we trained animals to be vegetarians, Biana mumbled. Only the ones we keep at the sanctuary, Della said. It would be pointless to bring them there for preservation, only to have them hunt each other. But those in the wild are free to choose their own diets. So these things seriously live around humans? Sophie asked as the Igotons licked the bug slime off their chops and waded back onto the river. Technically, Mr. Forkel said, they live in underwater caverns, and they swim far too fast for humans to spot them or catch them. Still, we make sure they're safe and undetected. And one of these days, we will catch that tricky lake dweller who keeps making headlines. Keep telling yourself that, one of the other gnomes told him. Sophie assumed the gnome was a he, since he wore grass-woven overalls instead of a grass skirt like the other 2. But it was hard to tell. Gnomes all had the same huge gray eyes and bodies like children. They lived with the elves by choice and were incredibly industrious creatures. More plant-like than animal, they absorbed all their energy from the sun and needed very little sleep and even less food. But they craved work and loved to garden, so they traded their harvests with the elves and filled their sleepless days with elven tasks. Alden had called it a symbiotic relationship, and the longer Sophie had lived with the elves, the more she agreed. The elves cared for the gnomes, and the gnomes worked happily, neither side imposing upon the other. I'm Kala, the gnome with the braid told Sophie, and this is Yor and Amici. It's an honor to finally meet you. Sophie fidgeted as Kala dipped an exaggerated curtsy. It's nice to meet you too. The other gnomes nodded and turned back to the Icodons, but Kala kept right on staring at Sophie. Her expression was a mixture of awe and curiosity, and Sophie wondered what the Black Swan had told the gnomes about her. We'll take your bags to your rooms, Sior, the gnome in the overalls, said. He grabbed Sophie's backpack from Fitz. And we have fresh clothes for you upstairs, Kala added. Well, for most of you, I didn't realize you were coming, Miss Dala. And not to worry, I'm a surprise visitor. Should we add a room in the East Tree House? Kala asked. Mr. Forkle nodded. Preferably up high, so it overlooks both residences. I thought the collective had to approve me staying, Della said. They have to approve you joining our order, Mr. Forkle corrected. But either way, it would be too risky to send you home. The council has surely discovered that you're missing, so consider yourself our guest and a much-needed chaperone. Chaperone, Keith whined. That's going to cramp my style. Yes, it is, Del agreed. Remember, I kept Alvar in line for years. Keith sighed dreamily. Alvar's my hero. Sophie had only met Fitz and Bionna's older brother a few times, and it always seemed very polished and professional. But she'd heard rumors of Alvar's wild side before, and knew it had to be pretty crazy for Kif to look up to him. We should have the new room ready by sunset. Amici, the third gnome, said, though there are fewer of us, so we might need another hour. Yes. Where are Gora and Yuri? Mr. Forkle asked. I didn't see them yesterday either. The three gnomes shared a look. They have gone to stay near Luminaria, Kala said after a moment, in the hopes they'll be allowed to visit the refugees. Yuri had family in Wildwood. I did not realize, Mr. Forkle whispered. I hope good news finds them soon. So do we. Charged silence passed before the gnomes, grabbed the buckets and satchels and shuffled off into the trees. What's Wildwood? Sophie asked. Mr. Forkle sighed. Is this how it's going to be? Constant questions? Pretty much, Sophie agreed. Well, do not expect an answer every time. But Wildwood was where a small colony of gnomes lived. Most of the race fled to the Lost Cities after the ogres overthrew Serenvale, their ancient homeland. But a few gnomes refused to live and took up residence in one of the neutral territories, in a grove not far from the borders of what has now become the ogre's capital city. Why are you speaking past tense? Della asked. Kala said something about refugees. A better term would be evacuees, Mr. Forkle corrected. Some sort of plague struck the colony a few weeks back and forced them to flee. They arrived in Luminaria 3 days ago for medical treatment, and that is the extent of my knowledge. The council has been extremely guarded with their information, and at the moment, they're allowing no visitors. But I do know that all of our best physicians are working to isolate the pathogen. I'm sure they'll find a cure soon. Della looked less than satisfied with the answer. Sophie wasn't thrilled either. Orally told us before we left that she thought the ogres were stirring in the neutral territories. Does this have something to do with that? Mr. Forkle scratched his chin. Interesting that the counselor would agree with the theories. What theories? Sophie pressed. This is your last question, he warned. The Wildwood colony has claimed ogre sabotage for centuries, but they've never been able to provide proof. I'll have to rally my sources and see if Orally has evidence for her suspicions. In the meantime, please put this out of your mind. You know better than most, Miss Foster, how truly powerful our medicine can be. I have no doubt the gnomes will recover soon. Shall we? He motioned for everyone to follow him toward one of the stair-wrapped trees, and they climbed to the ridge that connected the two houses. He pointed to the gazebo in the center, filled with pots of vibrant flowers and a round table with cozy chairs. Since you'll be dwelling in separate residences, we arranged this common eating area. Dinner will be served here, and you're in for a treat. Kala's dark flower stew is life-changing. Otherwise, boys are that way. He pointed to the treehouse across the bridge, and the girls are just above us. I must return to the Lost Cities and be seen for a few minutes. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a vial of green and orange speckled berries. So that's how you deforkle, Dex said. I should have guessed it was callow berries. My dad uses them in his anti-inflammatory ointments. They smell like Flaredon poop. Tastes like it too, Mr. Forkle agreed. So all we need to do is crush a few of those into your breakfast, and bam, instant Forkle reveal, Kif asked. I've been consuming callow berries for 13 years, Mr. Sensen. Do you honestly think I wouldn't notice the smell? I don't know. I'm really good at hiding things in people's food. Mr. Forkle ignored him, holding up a black crystal with a purple gleam. Does that mean we can light leap from here? Della asked. Only with special crystals, which we will provide if needed. What's this if stuff? Dex asked. Yeah, it's not like we're prisoners, Sophie said. Of course you're not, but you're fugitives, and you came here for our protection. This is how we provide it. It sounds like we're going to have to steal that crystal from you, Kif said. You would be very disappointed if you did. This crystal leads to my safe house, where I go to change identities. Anyone who does not know the secret for living is instantly trapped. So, that's it? Sophie asked. Here's your 3 houses. Have some stew, and good night. Hardly, Miss Foster. First, you must get clean up and meet me at ground level in an hour. You all have an appointment with the rest of our ruling collective.